Welcome to Bacademia, a podcast so educational two professors could be hosting it. Hi, I'm Dr. Danielle Dick-McGue, and joining me is Dr. Bill Henneman.
Welcome everybody to Bacademia. We are on our 6th season, and we're going to do this season a little bit different. We have a different format for the show because we are innovators and we're constantly trying to find ways to give you listener a good experience. So Danielle, what's up?
Not much. New year, new podcast format. You betcha.
New year, new us.
New year, new us. Yes, I love fresh starts. I love the fresh start of a new season of The Bachelor. I love the start of a new year.
Yep.
New week, new month. I'm in.
I got my planner filled out thanks to Danielle, the clever fox, which I have it right here. Danielle, would you like to give, what is your recommendation if people are trying to get their stuff together for Periwinkle Blue, by the way?
Periwinkle Blue is a good choice.
Well, it was a shout out to the movie Snatch. Like, I don't know if you remember when they were going to buy Brad Pitt the RV, and they're like, what color? He's like, Periwinkle Blue. So that's a wanted. So what would you recommend, Danielle? Because you are the foremost expert I've ever met on planners. If somebody was like, I want to get my crap together this year, what planner would you recommend? This is free advice, by the way, people.
I would say I would recommend any planner that you're going to use, but I don't think I could offer a generalized planner recommendation because I think that different people's brains need different layouts, and so you need to find one that works for you.
That is the answer of a true expert, right? When you try to get someone who really knows their stuff and you're like, give me a 2-word answer, and they're like, I can't. That's when you know they actually know what they're talking about.
Well, I've tried to use planners that, for example, any sort of vertical layout doesn't work for me. And so like, I won't use it.
Okay. And
then I'll think that there's like something wrong with me. And then I'll like realize that it's just the wrong format. And so like, I think that finding the right format for you is really, really important. I think that if you wanted to get your crap together though, the best thing that you could do is get in the habit of every single morning listing your top 3 tasks for the day. That if you were to only get 3 things done and to make yourself feel accomplished, what would those 3 things be? And I think that if you could get in the habit of doing that, I think it would make a huge, like that alone is a game changer of a sort of daily practice.
I love it. Nice.
Yeah.
What planner do you use?
I am using, I can bring it right here.
Nice.
I am using, it is.
We've already gone totally off the format.
We already have. This is like not at all what we planned.
Like your New Year resolutions. We are done. We're
done. We might talk about The Bachelor. So this is an Inkwell Press cover with I think Inkwell Press discs. It's my first time trying a disc system. I could talk about this for a while, but inside of it is actually Moxie Life horizontal. You can see I'm doing something kind of fun here. I have my appointments on one side, I have my tasks in the middle, and then on the side I'm writing gratitudes.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's nice.
All right. Should we get started?
We can get started.
I am fascinated by your love of planners. Like, I only care about the one that works for me, but it makes me so happy that there's someone in the world that is like that jazzed about planners.
Well, I think I'm really fascinated with how people navigate through like deciding what's important. And how people like organize their lives. I'm really fascinated why different things work for people and why things don't. I don't know. I think that that's what I find interesting. It's not necessarily like the planner. It's like how people use them that I think is interesting.
I love it. All right. Speaking of organizing our lives, here we go. Question of the day. You are granted a magical power. You are given 3 options for theme music whenever you walk in a room. One is for when you're pumped up, like you're strutting in the room, you got the tiger by the tail. One is when you are pissed off and you are like coming in to really like throw down. And one is when you're very moody / emo. What would your 3 songs be?
Okay, so first off, this was a hard question for me because I'm like one of those people, like I cannot memorize lyrics to songs.
Okay.
Like I'll know the tunes, I never know the name of the song, I never know the artist of the song. Like I sing the wrong words to songs all of the time. So this is hard for me, but I'd probably go with I have terrible taste in music is what you're gonna learn from this. My pumped song would be Taylor Swift, Shake It Off.
No, I think that is legit.
Shake it off. I dance to it, you know. Um, my angry one, I do not know who sings this, but we used to like I think play this before like volleyball games or something in high school. It's like the let the bodies hit the floor. Let the
Oh yeah.
you know?
Drowning Pool.
Okay, cool. What he said.
Let the bodies hit the floor by Drowning Pool.
Yes. And then my moody emo would probably be like Adele's Hello. Yeah.
Those are all legit. I like it. So
Legit
so my
if you're like almost 40, right? Like, you know.
yeah. So my pumped Push It by Salt and Pepper.
Oh, that's a good one.
Recognize that song is totally not about like walking into a room and like pushing the issue. It's a song all about sex. I'm fine with it. My angry song would be Hair of the Dog by Nazareth.
Oh, you're gonna have to sing some
Dog messing with I also think when Jesus comes back, that should be his song that he plays. And my movie emo song would be 33 by Smash Chickens, or Dark Parade or Black Parade by the guy from Blink 182. My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
I think that was from Blink 82. There you go. Yeah. Again, really good legit playlist for when you're almost 40. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got it covered.
all right. So part of the new format of the show is whoever is host one, which is me today, they will give a 2-minute recap of what went down on the show. And so we are going to try not to be total faculty professors. And remember that co-host Kim is now just host Kim. And so next week she will be on. And one of us will be host number 1, one will be host 2, and we'll rotate it through. So this will be fun for you all. You're going to get a different flavor every week. So, all right, I'm going to try not to be a faculty and talk too long. I'm going to give a 2-minute recap of what happened. So put me on the clock.
All right.
At home, put us on the
Okay.
Here we go. We're started out with Clayton, and he is talking about why people would want him on the show, even though we only got 8 minutes of screen time. And apparently that is because he believes in the process. And that's all we learned about him in that thing. He likes his parents, and he is from somewhere in Missouri. I forgot the name of it. Eureka, Missouri, I think.
Eureka, yeah.
Eureka,
That's right.
home of Six Flags, Missouri. So then Six Flags St. Louis. It starts out, there's a girl on there, and she tells him, Sally, that she was going to get married, and then her engagement, this was the month. She says she can't be there. He tries to keep her. He tries to give her a rose, and she says, I'm out. It was very awkward. Then the limos arrive, so I'm gonna try to fly through here and give you some different people. So Sarah stepped out. She is a wealth management. She gave him a token. We got Lindsay, who's from the South. Lindsay W. Bartender Genevieve, who had beautiful teeth. NC, who's a wedding photographer, Susie, who's a spray tanner, Claire, who's an elementary school teacher, and Serene, I think I'm getting these wrong. Claire's a spray tanner, elementary school teacher.
Claire does not seem like an elementary school teacher to me.
Eve is a bartender, NC is a sales manager, wedding photographer is Susie, Claire's a spray tanner, and Serene was an elementary school teacher. Teddy, who is a surgical unit nurse, and she's also a virgin, very important to know. We've got Teresa, who's a human resource specialist, neonatal nurse Lindsay. Daria showed up wearing a rose necklace. last name is Rose. We've got let's see, Kate, who said something about nips. Took the little bottle of nippers. She's a real estate agent. We got Sierra, who wanted to tie the knot. We've got personal trainer Melina. We've got pediatric nurse Haley, which I think is a cool job, and she asked a jar of pickles. We've got Jill, who brought the ashes of her ex-boyfriend. Woo! Former Olympian Marlena, who is 30, and she was an Olympian for, it was Japan in fencing, or no, Haiti in the 400-meter dash. I'm thinking of somebody else. We've got retiree Holly, who actually is apparently just there for the Bachelor Old Balls or whatever they're calling it. And she introduced Rachel, the flight attendant. We've got Ivana, the bar mitzvah dancer, who was a physician and showed up in her sexy physician outfit. We've got entrepreneur Mara. We've got marketing manager Eliza, and then we've got Gabby, who brought him a pillow. She's an ICU nurse. Real estate advisor Elizabeth, HR specialist Hunter, occupational therapist Samantha, executive recruiter Cassidy, and 29-year-old Shanae, who she drove up in the truck and crushed the other little bitty truck. So at the cocktail party, we've got a whole bunch of people talking. He kisses Teddy first. And I think, did Teddy get the first rose?
Mm-hmm.
Teddy got the first rose, and Teddy is very cute and has a very nice smile. Kira checked his heart and said she was going to give him a physical. For any of the women listening, I'm sure physicals for you are not sexy. They are also not sexy for men. Your balls violated while you turn your head and cough, and then a finger up to check your prostate is not sexy at all. We had someone translate some German. The big things that happened is that Claire, they talked about their football team, and then she was having him eat wings, and then he left, and then she said she hated him, and then someone came back and said, you should talk to her because she said she hated you, and she said, no, I don't hate you. I just feel like we didn't click. Sent her home, which was amazing. He talked with Genevieve, who has great teeth. And then, let's see, we did the rose ceremony. And he kept Serena, Susie, Eliza, Rachel, Lindsay, Sarah, Kate, Cassidy, Elizabeth, Kira, Shanae, Sierra, Mara, Marlena, Genevieve, Melanie, or Melina, Gabby, Jill, Lindsay W, Hunter, and Tessa.
Woohoo!
If I was more than 2 minutes, send hate tweets to our account. We love a good hate tweet. So
Good.
thoughts?
Absolutely.
Anything?
So it was okay. I will say, there's been a lot of criticism on the internet about like all of the girls looking alike.
Mhm.
And I think that some of this is sort of race related, right? That they feel like the franchise has been trying to have more diverse contestants. This season feels like a reversal of that.
Mhm.
But I will say, I actually thought that there was I think that there's always similarities in appearances because they're oftentimes attractive people, and there's some patterns in terms of what we find attractive.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Attractiveness is universal. Like somebody who's attractive in a different country would likely still be thought of as attractive here. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I don't know that I felt like this season they looked any more or less similar
Mhm.
than usual in terms of attractiveness. In fact, I thought that there were more women with interesting noses this season than you typically see.
Okay.
So that's like my hot take.
Interesting noses in what way?
There's, they just weren't like all your little button noses. Genevieve has an interesting nose. There's a blonde, I can't think of her name right now, but like she had an interesting nose, and I was like, there's some interesting noses.
Interesting. think Clayton and I are on board. I like big nose. I think bigger noses are attractive. I think Clayton and I are on that, like
On that.
long pointy nose. I like them.
Good deal. But yeah, so like I just was like, I'm into that. Like, I don't know. I'm rocking a bigger nose, but like I thought that was like an interesting. I appreciated
I did
that.
not notice that, but now I'm going to be looking at it all season.
Absolutely, you should. But yeah, I mean, I thought that the girls were really anxious, and you see this a lot. And I think that it is hard as someone watching. You're like, well, you just got here. Like, if you go home, like, I understand that maybe that like affects your ego or something.
Mhm.
But it is hard to realize that they probably have given up some career opportunities to be here, or, like they've probably given up some things to be on the show. And so it probably does feel a lot more intense than like as you're watching it, you're like, why are you freaking out about whether or not you get a rose? Like, there's no way you have that much of a connection with this guy yet.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be, a lot of it has to do with not wanting to lose, right?
Yeah,
Was it Lindsay that had the interesting nose?
I think so. That sounds right.
Looking at her, she has an Lindsay Windham.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as part of the new way the show goes, we're going to talk about 3 concepts instead of going through like a breakdown of the whole show, because there are a whole bunch of podcasts that you can do that. So we want to talk about concepts that maybe we have some expertise in or that we thought was interesting. So here's the first one I got for you, D3. Who are the front runners from this episode and why? So one of my questions about that was, he has a subdued energy. He needs someone who's vivacious as opposite. I didn't feel like there was a lot of women who came off as kind of like subdued, but I guess you got to kind of put your best foot forward.
So, what I would sort of say is, in terms of front runners, I try to do this ignoring, a lot of people feel like we've already seen who the front runners are because of spoilers.
Right.
And so I tried to just ignore that and go with who I thought from this first episode. So one, I would start with Teddy, just because I think that the first impression rose is really important. A lot of people have chosen the person that they give their first impression rose to. And so I think that like matters. The other person that I thought, and now I need to look, was Rachel, is what I had written down. So Rachel is a flight instructor, and I have to say, I actually don't like Rachel. I don't know. Yes.
Really?
So, yes, there's something that like doesn't rub me right about Rachel, but I felt like they had a good connection.
I really liked Rachel. First off,
Yeah.
I think flight instructor is a pretty badass job. Second, I just thought she seemed nice. Wow.
She does seem nice.
Okay.
There's something about her that didn't rub me right though.
Okay. That's
I'm trying to maybe articulate it better. I think she's really pretty. I think that she seems like smart enough, right? Like, like I just, there's something about, because she did the weird thing with bringing Holly on, and like, and I don't know, there's this way that she's kind of playing up like, I'm a flight instructor, isn't that sexy? That like, I don't know, I didn't like.
I felt like the thing with Holly was probably nothing with her and everything to do with them trying to like pimp that show out. And so they were like, show of hands, who wants to have an old person come out and introduce you? And she was like, I guess me. So
I agree. That doesn't feel like something that a decision she probably made on her own. And then my third person was Gabby. And I think I actually wish I would have had time to go back and watch it a second time. So Gabby is an ICU nurse.
But we're busy people. We can't just spend all of our time rewatching The Bachelor and Bachelorette.
Y'all, I have to submit a book manuscript tomorrow. Otherwise I probably would watch it for a second time. But so if I remember right, I think that Gabby is the person that is like um maybe was like an NFL cheerleader and now works as a nurse.
Yep.
And I thought that she was cheerful and she seemed nice and I could see the two of them connecting.
She was the first NFL, first female and NFL cheerleader in the history of the award, which has traditionally been given to NFL players. She won the Pop Warner Humanitarian Award.
Awesome.
Yeah.
She just seemed like I could see her and Clayton having a lot in common.
I dig it. She, her and Duvernay Tardif, who is a doctor for the Chiefs, both left their jobs to take care of people during the pandemic, and that's why they won it. So,
So, she doesn't suck as a human being.
right. So I agree with your first two. Those were my two.
Okay.
But so I had one of the things I had in there was kind of about he has a very subdued energy. He's kind of quiet, he's smiley, he doesn't throw himself out there. And my kind of question was, does he need somebody who's the opposite? And we've talked about on here the research that you're likely to be happy if you marry someone who's very similar to you, but you can have complementary opposite traits. So the example I always use is Elaine manages all of our money, and I am totally fine with that because I don't want to do it. It's not fun. And so in that way, we're really opposite, and she really likes it, but it doesn't bother me. So the question really is, what does he want? What does the person want? Do they want someone who's willing to go out and do lots of stuff or take the lead on things, or does he want someone more like him? And so in that way, I felt like the flight attendant, what was her name again?
Rachel.
The flight instructor, Rachel, was much more subdued like him.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like she was more quiet. And so I feel like in that way they would match up well. And then Teddy, I thought, was more outgoing, but he seemed to really be attracted to her, and they seemed to have a really good conversation. Genevieve was my other one. And
Yeah.
I felt like they, when they were talking, they seemed to have a lot of interest together. And he is a medical sales rep, I think is what I read about him. And so aside from the jokes about medical sales reps and them all being really attractive women and, they're pushing stuff, I think you do have to be pretty smart to do that job, because you have to converse with a doctor and explain to them why this is the best thing. And I have no idea if Genevieve is really smart or not, but I believe her job is a bartender. Is that right?
That sounds right.
I think so. And so my only concern about that was, are they going to have enough in common, that would work out. So
I had Genevieve was up there for me too. And I do think that there's something about their energy, kind of like you were saying, that matches each other. There's something that's interestingly, like, she's kind of interestingly serious.
Genevieve?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. She's very smiley, but being serious stuff the whole time.
Yeah. And I think that he's kind of like that. When you said that he's subdued, I sort of see him as like, you're like, he's subdued, but he's really smiley. But I do think that there's something he does take this process really serious too. So yeah, I don't know. Genevieve is up there for me too. And maybe some of his front runners. I do think that maybe finding someone playful for him would be good. But you do see someone like Claire. I think part of the reason that they clashed and she like hated him is because I think it depends on, there are different types of outgoing personalities, right? And she's kind of this like brash kind of outgoing. And I think that there's like that kind of outgoing, but then there's like kind of bubbly,
right,
petty outgoing, which are very different sorts of vivaciousness, and I
Right.
don't think that he meshed very well. Like, I don't see him with someone that has a little bit of like Queen Victoria's personality.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. So I think that there is a outgoing person, and then there is an outgoing person that needs to be in the lead. And I think that was Claire's thing, was that she had to, like, she was driving that whole interaction. And like when they were talking about wings, and she's like, what one's your type of wings? And he said this, she's like, oh great, then you can have those, I'll have all the flats. And it's like, she's like, and I think she was just rubbing him the wrong way in that way, and then basically saying she hated him, which I don't think she really hated him. I think it was just a very flippant remark that she was saying, and she was probably a little intoxicated. But if someone's going to say it in that setting, they're probably a whole relationship, and you got to either decide if you're going to be able to just be like, that's who they are, whatever, not, or if it's going to rub you the wrong way.
I did like appreciate in some ways that she was like, look I'm not feeling it. I think she probably would have chosen to go home by the end of the evening, even if he hadn't asked her to go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of like appreciate, because sometimes I feel like people are kind of playing the game. And so even if they don't like necessarily feel a connection with him, they're gonna like, they still like want to win, or like, and so like I kind of appreciated that, but I agree with you. Like, I didn't feel like her saying that she hates him. Like, it was her being hyperbolic. It was like her being dramatic. I think that's a huge red flag. But I don't necessarily, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I think people do that, and it's a limit to people to see if they're going to be pushed away easily. So I think it's a like I'm going to see if I can push you away, and if not, then you've passed my test. I don't think it's a good test. I think it's, we act around patterns, and I think that's, people develop that pattern, and it's kind of like their way of being like, are you going to hang out with me? Are you going to be able to tolerate me? So, all right, biggest drama starter and why?
So, okay. So we were just talking about Genevieve, and I think that Genevieve might be involved in drama. I don't know if
shit starter. He's not gonna be one that's like, those are my beads, nice sash. Yeah, that's a Cinderella reference, by the way, from the Disney one. Or so she's not gonna like go out and actively do it, but she'll be involved, is what you're saying?
I don't think that she's gonna be a drama starter like Queen Victoria, right? But I do think that she might be a drama starter because I think she's gonna be jealous.
So she will be like the sisters from Cinderella.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they communicate their jealousy might be different than her way of doing it, but I just sort of see her as being involved in it in some way. I also put down Elizabeth and Kate.
Okay.
And so maybe I messed this up. Okay, maybe I was okay, so Kate was the nip one who came in and did like the nip thing and took the shot. And I was like, oh, if you're like bold enough to do that, right? Like, I think that she kind of shows that she might like to stir things a bit. And then I think Elizabeth, remind me, she was like one of the first people that they showed. And she's like a real estate agent. And she's like, I get what I want or whatever. Am I confusing her?
Kate is the real estate agent.
So is Elizabeth.
Okay. There's a lot of real estate agents on this one. And if like the housing market's just down and like, well, around there. Yeah.
There's also lots of nurses. This is, I think actually the medical field batch data did some, pulled out them based on occupation, and the most common occupation this season is actually in the medical field.
Well, and I wondered if that had to do with his job, right? And also, if he's like, you have to relocate, like 2 jobs where you can relocate pretty easy, be a real estate agent and a nurse, right? Like right now, if you're a nurse, you can go anywhere in the country and they'll yeah. So
I think it could also be that, if they're looking for a plot line where someone is sort of like this hero that has like
yeah,
helped in the pandemic,
yep,
like Gabby, right? I think that like that's an interesting thing at this moment,
right.
right? Like with everything happening with COVID, putting people that have been working in the medical field, or like maybe just a lot of people in the medical field applied right now because they're like, I need to get out.
F it. I'm out. I don't want to. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. After you said that, I was like, maybe the nurses are just like, I'm done. We've been horribly mistreated. Um, so I have my spoiler or my conspiracy theory is the flight instructor, which you all
Yeah,
know I am horrible with names. I think
Rachel.
she's going to be a shit starter. I think
I
she,
think so too.
yep, I think she is going to be somebody who comes off very nice, but I think she is going to talk behind people's backs and she's going to get jealous. Yeah,
Maybe that's what rubbed me wrong.
that's,
You know,
yeah, you have a
I
much
don't know.
better, yeah, you have a much better radar for that because there's
Maybe.
no, yeah.
We'll see.
I feel like girls are better at judging like what girls are going to be a problem, you know? Like women are better at judging other women. I think like straight guys are just like, she has boobs. I don't know, man. Like guys are blinded by that type of thing. I worry
Yeah.
for Clayton. I worry
Well, then
for
I think you have to play sort of like as a girl, especially, in middle school and high school, in order to sort of like navigate the social trains of those ages. It's like a survival skill,
yeah.
right?
Having grown up with sisters, two of them who I love very much if they're listening, they are rarely wrong when they're like, I don't like that girl. Now, sometimes they may like it and later be like, turns out they're kind of crazy, but if they've ever just been like flat out, no, I don't like that person, they're usually right. So,
Well, what I kind of stink at is, okay, so like a lot of times I like everybody. That's my problem.
you
Like
do.
I
If
really
someone
do
kicked
like
you in the
everybody.
face, if someone kicked you in the face, you'd be like, oh man, that was a good kick right there.
I think I like to imagine that it's that I try not to essentialize a person to one thing that they did or said. And
Uh-huh.
so I tend to be like, well, that person said this really awful and did this really nasty thing, but one time I saw them do a nice thing for someone too. So like I'm holding out, you know? So it takes a lot for me to like really forever not like someone.
I just have this theory that whatever gender you're attracted to, you have a blind. I don't know how that works for people who are pansexual or bisexual, but I feel like I've had girls who are friends and my sisters are like, I really like this guy. And it's like, he horrible. Get out of this. And I've had guy friends who are like, I like this girl. And I'm like, this is not, this does not go well. And I've had guy friends who like guys, like, don't do it, man. This is not going to work out well. So
That's all. Yeah. I don't know. That'd be a good study. That'd be a good study.
I need to look that up. Okay. So we got to know a little bit more about Clayton. Any positive, any positive red flags about him? Anything like that?
So I'll start with positives because I do want to talk about one of his red flags, but
Because
here
you're a
a little bit
positive
later.
person, dang it, and you like people. That's what I like about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. So a lot of people are like, if there's anything we can all agree on this season, it's that we hate Clayton. But okay. So this is one thing that I found kind of endearing about him is he is so over his head. Like I do not know how they decided that he should be the bachelor. And that's not like, and here's why I'm saying this as a positive. There's something so endearing that he's just kind of a disaster and already.
Yeah.
Like on the first night, you have like Matt James who comes out and gives us like a beautiful like toast and he's like flawless and you love him and like you like prayed with them, remember? And like then you have like Clayton who's like spilling drinks and like making out with too many people and like
Yeah.
and there's something about it that makes me sort of feel like this is just like an everyday person who like somehow got thrown into this and he's just doing his darndest and it's gonna be one heck of a ride.
He's very earnest. I like that about him. And he seems to be like, this is who I am. And said he spilled a drink. And maybe if you're just a normal person, you're in over your, because I was thinking like Pilot Pete was like very, like clearly was not going to give anyone anything. He was very like, guarded. The other pilot, the guy that looked kind of like Tom Cruise, that turned out to just be kind of a dick.
I don't remember. I don't know if I was watching then.
Or like the soccer player, right? They were just very polished and very, I just feel like Clayton's just
Clayton is not polished. And
yeah.
Here's the other thing. Like, I know I do not find like Clayton is not my type. Like, I do not find him very handsome. Like, I don't know.
Velka, sorry.
Okay. But yeah, he's like tall and beefy, but like besides that, like I just don't find him that like I find him like very like I think you would think he was handsome if you saw him in real life, right? Like if you're like in a bar on a regular evening and you saw him in, you'd probably be like, whoa, there's a tall drink of water, right? But like on TV, you're like, you just look kind of like a normal dude with more muscles,
He's got great dimples.
He does have great dimples.
Yeah.
He's got a good smile.
Elaine has said several times he's her type. And I'm like, geez, now I'm going to have to fight him if I ever meet him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think that goes well for me. All right. So the last part of our new format. Oh, wait, you had some red flags.
Well, I'll talk about that in this next section.
Cool. Perfect. So the host number 2 is Danny. And then she'll be host number 1 at some point coming up. Her job is wild card. So she gets to pick a wild card concept. Just what do you want to talk about, Danielle? It can be something you're an expert on. It can be a thought you had.
So I wanted to talk about decision making and what it is that we can learn about decision making from these shows. So I saw this on Instagram. So this isn't my cleverness. But I'll say it anyway, like it is. On a scale of 1 to Pilot Pete, how chaotic is Clayton's decision making? And let's just start there for a moment.
This is what do I think?
Yeah.
Pilot Pete was like a whole, like I think he is kind of the gold standard of like not really like being invested, but totally being there to have sex and charm women. And I don't think Clayton's there. And I feel like Pilot Pete's, all of his decisions were based on, will this person sleep with me? And can I get out of this relationship as quick as possible once we're done with it? And I feel like Clayton's too earnest. So I'd put him below Pilot Pete. Maybe more, I think he's going to be like Jason Mesnick, where it's like, he's clearly a nice person, not great at decision making. Where it's like, I felt like everything Jason Mesnick did, he was trying really hard, but he just needed someone to be like, Jason, pull it back, buddy. Let's take a second. Let's breathe. Like Melissa Rycroft is a very nice person. You clearly are not that into her. Like you clearly want the other girl.
So I think that this is what's interesting to me is that part of the fun of watching the show is that you almost always think that the lead is making wrong decisions. We just came off of a season with Michelle who was like the opposite of Clayton in certain ways. Like she had very clear boundaries and she knew how to hold them. And I think that that's going to be a huge challenge for him.
His undoing.
It is going to be. So, I mean, I think that he is so nice that I think that in an effort to be kind, he is going to make the wrong decisions. Where I think Pilot Pete was making the wrong decisions because he wanted sex, right? Like, I think that it's like a little bit different. But I think that what's interesting to me,
he was letting little Pete do the picking.
yes, yes. I guess like what's interesting to me is that, Michelle choosing Nate, we were all like, what? Like, we saw red flags, you ignored red flags. So it's not something as simple as like, I mean, so I like started to really think about like what constitutes good decision making on this show. And I did do a little bit of research because that's not something that I do research. And I did read an article on, oh gosh, I'm like going to see if I can find it. I've done research. I seriously have like 20 articles up right now though, because I'm working on the book. Well, what was interesting about this is it was talking about adolescence and relationships and decision making. And I don't know if I'm finding it. Oh yeah, here it is. I'll pull it up really quick.
I can put it in the show notes, me too.
Yeah, I'll find it later. But the article was actually kind of talking about how people that don't make decisions in relationships, they were kind of talking about it. Do you let relationships slide or do you decide? So it's like called slide or decide. And sliding is basically when you let a relationship transition to a different stage without really deciding to move the relationship to a new stage. And, unsurprisingly, right, the results were that people that were making conscious decisions about where their relationship was at versus just kind of like going with the flow tended to have healthier, stronger relationships. So like, which isn't particularly surprising. But I was just trying to sort of think about, watching these shows, what do we learn about, decision making? And because I do think it's fascinating when we think people are really bad decision makers. And it seems like people have already decided that Clayton is pretty bad, especially because of his with previously engaged girl, right? So Sally, that was nuts, right? Okay, one, I just want to say that Sally had like 7 minutes of screen time, which means that she had almost as much screen time this episode as Clayton did on all of Michelle's season. So that's just kind of funny. But also like what was interesting to me is, and maybe we didn't see everything, but here's this girl that he doesn't know, kind of shows up to his room, is like crying. They have no like in disclosing really personal things when they have like no relationship. Right. And like his response is, oh, we have a connection. Here's a rose. And on one hand, I'm like, I understand that he wanted to try to communicate to her, I want you to give this a shot. I'd like you to give this a shot. I'll like sort of support you and be there for you if that's what you decide. On the other hand, you're like, this is really weird.
Right.
And I also was thinking about, when do we confuse sort of like having emotions with emotional connection?
A lot of research on that people misattribute, it's called misattribution emotions, and it happens all the
Yeah. And I mean, I think I'm a pretty empathetic person, and I really I don't like to small talk with people. Like, I'm like, oh, hi, I just met you. Let's have a serious life conversation, right?
You tell me, Ryan said one time you'll be at like an airport and like you and a lady, like someone will be crying and he's like, what happened? It's like, you just met her. And she's like, well, her baby passed 3 years ago.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll just like meet someone and they'll just, people disclose pretty serious stuff to me really quickly. And most of the time I kind of like this about myself. Like, it makes it for really interesting life. But because I will, and I ran into this a lot when I was younger, not as much anymore. but I'd have to be careful, especially in talking with guys, right? Because I would think that I was just like listening and providing emotional support. And I think then they would be like, oh, well, Danielle and I had some sort of romantic connection. And I would be like, no, dude, like I just sat with you through a hard thing and listened in an empathetic way. Like that's what any human should just do for another human. That doesn't mean that I like want to make out with you.
Right.
Um, and so like I do think that like that's a hard that sometimes when somebody is expressing empathy for someone that it's intimate and that we have a hard time sometimes distinguishing between just like regular old human intimacy and romantic intimacy.
Guys, it's worse because social is, and there's a lot of research around and to have very side by side relationships. And so they do things or stuff. So they play golf, they build fences, we call very face to relationships.
Mhm.
And so I think it's very natural for a woman to sit down. I don't think this is biological. I think this is socialized, almost totally a socialization thing. But women are very comfortable sitting down and talking. But men don't do that with sex, friends, if sexual. And then they usually only do that with women that they have a relationship with. And
Yep.
so I think there's this weird misattribution that like if a woman sits down and is interested in what I'm saying emotionally, then they must like me.
Yep.
Where it's not that, the woman's just being a very good person.
Yes. And so, and I kind of felt like that was a little bit of what was going on with like Clayton and Sally, right? That like, she's like, hey, I'm going through a tough time. And she went in there to sort of go, I don't know if I can be on the show. And I want to
Mhm.
offer you an explanation. But he sort of like read it as, oh, she needs some confirmation that I'm going to support her to be here. And I think read her, ironically, her emotional response to her failed engagement as like them connecting.
I think he's got a hero complex. Like I think he wants to be the what was the was a religion Wild at Heart.
Oh
I think,
yeah.
which I think we've done research on, right?
Um
Ryan.
yeah, he's done some. Mm-hmm.
I think he has that very like men save women and like this is this emotionally wrecked woman and I'm gonna jump in and save her. And it's like, man, you've known her for 3 minutes. Like take a step, breathe, let her make her decision, and then let her go on her way. Like you don't have to be there and save that person. So
Do you think there were a lot I think it's kind of rare that in a very first episode you would see two people leave the show.
I thought that was really interesting, and I think she probably makes a reappearance. Because why would they give that much time to somebody who's just going to be gone onto the season, right?
I don't know because there's all this drama though, where people were okay. So Bachelor Data kind of went through the timeline and it doesn't kind of add up. The timeline
She
around,
where she her engagement broke off, and yeah,
and now there's pictures of her. She's recently posted pictures of her with her fiance, well, her ex-fiance. And so there's some questions are like, are they back together? And then all of a sudden she did pull everything off of social media. But I know Bachelor Data had they had taken screenshots ahead of time. So like there's kind of a joke that like their tagline should be we have receipts, right? But it so I kind of thought that too, Bill. And then I was like, one, if that's kind of what they're going for, they should have taken care of the social media stuff beforehand. And yeah, I thought that's where they were going. And now though, some of the stuff that's come across social media, I'm like, maybe not.
well, I wonder if she comes back, but he turns her away. But they needed to have that information out there, so that it wasn't this like,
Yeah.
why should we care when she comes back? Want to make sure that the story is set up.
I thought that it made for a fantastic first episode.
Oh
because
yeah.
I sometimes find the first episodes, all the limo stuff, like I don't, it's interesting, but it's kind of like when you've watched enough of these seasons, you know, it's not that interesting.
It gets very rote.
And yes, and so like this kind of was a different sort of season. I also sort of have some empathy for Clayton because I think a lot of times the person that's the bachelor, you know, was like a runner up on the Bachelorette or something. And so people really love this person. And like the person, even though they dealt with a breakup and some rejection, it's also like, yeah, but like you made it pretty far, right? Where like Clayton is this guy that everybody hates and like nobody understands why he's the Bachelor. And on top of that, like he didn't make it that far. And
Right.
so like I think part of what makes him endearing and you kind of have empathy for him is that you kind of do feel like, oh, this is barely starting and this poor guy's like he's in charge and yet he's still getting rejected.
Yeah, I would like to point out that I do not hate him. Just think he's very vanilla. I enjoy a good bumbling person, and I feel like it's like when you start to see a disaster starting to happen and it's fascinating. It's before the point where you're like, oh no, this could really be bad, where you're kind of like, well, I want to see how this turns out. Like, I feel like that was the first couple episodes are going to be like that, but I have a feeling it's going to feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Lessons learned.
So I don't know if this is a lesson learned so much as something that I'm going to keep thinking about, and that's related to kind of what I was talking about before is I really am kind of fascinated in how people, how fans of the show make sense of decision making as it occurs on the show. And so I just want to start paying attention and see if I can start noticing some patterns and the way that we talk about people's decision making, and what that maybe can teach us. Cause I do think that that's not something I had been thinking about quite as much before.
I need to do a dive on the research in not with decision making, and like if people are happier when they actively make a decision, even if it's a decision, or happier when they don't make a decision, bad versus the right. Like, so you really got it like a quadrangle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can make a good decision, you can make a bad decision, you can have a bad and you can make a decision, or have a bad thing happen to you where you didn't, or a good thing where you didn't, and where people are most happy. Typically we call that an interaction effect, if there's like they change. So don't worry guys, I'll get on here with SPSS, maybe throw down some Israel, like show you. I realize we're trying to take this up a notch, and there's nothing here more entertaining than people watching me do stuff. So
If you can teach me statistics in a way that I'd understand, I will give you a gold star.
Danielle is the best sticker I know.
I got some good stickers. So
my lesson learned is that you should buy a planner that works for you. And I know you're like, he's joking. No, I had never heard anyone say that. And I have like through my life planners and used them and then been like, I don't want this. But I feel like someone should have just told me that, like find one that you use. So
yeah. Well, you like suffered through though the one that I recommended you last year.
No, I did. I liked it. That's why I bought the same one. I wanted times in it.
You needed a different layout.
And I did, but everything else I liked. So now, if you can see, I have my times. So
yours is vertical, like a Google calendar.
I like vertical. So
probably, do you organize your day thinking about time, or do you organize your day based on tasks?
I organize my day based on time. But that's
so if you organize your day based on time, you probably need a vertical layout. If you organize your day based on tasks, you probably want to find a horizontal layout.
I used to do it based on my new positions. Like my schedule gets so eaten up that I have to be able to see where do I have blocks to do stuff. So
yeah.
Oh my God, this has been so entertaining, and like it has taught me so much. Go out Danielle. Thank you.
Absolutely. We tried to make this faster, and I think it was exactly the same amount of time as we always are.
Time for people to hear what they really want to hear, which is you and me talking about whatever we find entertaining. So
The Bill and Danielle and Kim show.
next week is it you and Kim?
I have no idea.
Oh, even make recording rotation. Next week is Kim and Bill.
Ooh.
So Kim will be lead host, so she makes the outline and I'm host. So if you have any suggestions for us on how to change the show around, we are more than open. batchadamy@gmail.com. All right, so second host gets a shout out. Miss off, Danielle.
Yeah. Have a great week, you all. Embrace the fresh start of a new year.
Everybody, have a great rest of your week. You've been listening to Batchadamia with your hosts, Doctors Daniel Dick McGew and Bill Henniger. All opinions expressed on this show are solely the opinion of the person who spoke them. If you like our podcast, please consider following us, leaving us a 5-star rating, and a positive review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, please share with your friends, family, and other ardent Bachelor content lovers. If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at batchadamia@gmail.com or on the Twitter with the handle @batchadamia. Thanks for listening.